Okay guys, now it's finally going to start to get really fun because we're going to edit our clips in After Effects. In the first three parts, we just set up our project and started exporting some clips. Now we're going to finally begin working here in After Effects. So whenever I make a video, the first thing I make sure to get right are my camera angles and my transitions. These are like the foundation of my edit. Once I have solid looking transitions and camera angles, then I'm finally able to start applying cool effects like glowing eyes or anything else that's kind of commonly seen in my videos. If I don't work on the foundation of good transitions and camera angles and I try to jump straight into the effects, it's kind of like trying to decorate a lump of trash. The foundation will always determine the quality of the final result. So with that being said, let's start learning how I make good transitions. Okay, so if you'll remember in the previous part, I showed you guys how to export these clips from Flashback Mod, and if you'll also remember, these clips are significantly longer than we need them to be. These are about 6 seconds long, when in reality we only mapped out a 2-second clip that we need. So what do we do? Well, the first kind of intuitive thought or answer that we might have is to try and speed up this clip so that it's the exact length that we need it to be. But how do we do that? Well, After Effects does have a feature to speed up footage. If we right click, we go to time and we go to time stretch, you'll see that we get this stretch factor section here with a value of 100. Now, the way this one works is if you lower the number, the clip will go faster. So 50 would be twice as fast and 10 will be 10 times as fast. And if you increase the number, it's going to be slower. So 200 is actually going to be twice as slow. So let's try to make it twice as fast by just inputting a value of 50. So we put in 50 and we see that the clip has now gone twice as fast. But we see that it's actually not quite as fast as we need it to be because we need it to end about there. So let's try a lower value. If we go to time stretch, and then we try something like 30, you see now that we almost get what we want, but it's still ending just now it's ending a bit too soon. So if we go to time stretch, change that to maybe 33. Now we see, oh gosh, that's way too long. So we need to go in and we need to do some more trial and error. Now we can put in a stretch factor of 31. Still not quite what we want. Let's try one more time stretch 30. Oh my gosh, we can't even get a value that's a whole number. We need to do time stretch 30.5 maybe, and now we almost get what we want, but now we're gonna have to start doing some really precise decimals to get it to match exactly where we need it to be. Fellas, this way of trying to speed up a clip to do what we want is absolutely terrible, and it's not gonna work at all. Nobody wants to go in and plug in hundreds of different values to get the speed that we want, and there is a much better way called time remapping. So let's go ahead and just undo all of that garbage that I just did, and we're back to where we were before. Now, instead of trying to speed it up with the time stretch, we're going to go ahead and we're going to right click, we're going to go ahead and go over to time, and we're going to click enable time remapping. Now you'll notice that when I enable time remapping, After Effects immediately created two keyframes, one at the start of the clip and one at the end of the clip. Now remember, our goal is to shorten this 6-second clip to match the 2 seconds that we planned out in the editing tutorial part 2. So if we go ahead and we go to the end of this solid which we planned out, we can try and drag this bar over to the end to potentially shorten the clip to make it just 2 seconds long. But you see immediately we have a bit of a problem. This didn't really do what we want it to do. Yes, the clip now is 2 seconds long, and yes, it does match our plan, but After Effects didn't speed it up at all. All After Effects did was cut the clip. It's just playing the first 2 seconds of the 6-second clip, but what we really want is for it to speed up the entire 6-second clip to match the duration that we have planned out. So if we go ahead and undo that, and then we drag this keyframe instead, you'll see that something completely different happens. After Effects has actually sped up the entire clip to match the duration that we want. So what's going on here? Well, you see, this bar up here no longer represents the start and end of the clip. These keyframes represent the start and end of the clip. So where this first keyframe is where the clip will start, and where this second keyframe is where the clip will end. You'll notice that if I drag these even closer together, you'll now see that the clip starts here, it goes really, really fast, and then it ends where that second keyframe is. And if we drag it way out here, you'll see now that the clip will end where this keyframe is. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring that keyframe to where we want it to be, because we want it to match this clip here. Now, you might be asking, if these two keyframes represent the start and end, then what is this bar up here even for? Well, this bar is still extremely important because it's going to determine whether or not the clip will be shown. What do I mean by that? If I drag this bar and I move it right here, you'll see that the clip will only play until the end of that bar, and afterwards the clip is no longer showing. It's still, I guess you can say, in a sense continuing, because the clip ends at this keyframe, but it's not actually being shown because it's only going to be shown as long as this bar is there. So if we drag this bar over here, you'll now see that the clip will continue to play. But what happens if we drag the bar way past where the clip supposedly ends? Well, you'll see that once we reach the end, it plays as normal. And then once we go past this keyframe, you'll see that the clip does in fact continue to show, but nothing's actually happening because the clip has already ended. In a chronological sense, it's already ended because this keyframe marks the end of the clip time-wise, and the clip will continue to show, but nothing's actually happening because there's nothing left to happen because it already ended once this keyframe was there. So if we put the keyframe where we want it to be, and we put this bar by pressing Alt-Tab, and we end this bar where we need it to end, you'll see we get exactly what we want. The clip has sped up to the exact length that we've needed it to speed up to, and the clip will end exactly where we need it to end. And so you can see this is so much better than going in here and trying to time stretch and trying to input a bunch of different values. Oh, actually I want it to be twice as fast. No, I want it to be 2.2 times as fast. No, actually I need it to be 2.37, and just trying all these different values until we finally get something that works. Instead, we can just simply drag this keyframe, and After Effects will automatically speed it up to exactly how fast we need it to be. And this is called time remapping, and without it, none of my videos are possible. Okay, so this all looks great, but what if we need to use only a portion of the clip? Now, what do I mean by that? Well, for example, if we actually look at this, we have a bit of a problem. It starts off good, but then right as we get to the end, for some reason, the camera just stops moving. You can see my characters continue to move, but the camera just decides to kind of not move anymore, which is just something weird that can happen with flashbacks sometimes. But what I want to do is I actually want to get rid of this portion here. I want to cut out these frames where the camera's not moving, and then to fill that gap, I want the remaining footage, this footage here, to be stretched and slowed down just a little bit to fill the remaining time so that it's still 2 seconds long. So how can we do that? Well, if you remember what I described earlier, this keyframe represents the start of the clip, and this keyframe represents the end of the clip. But we are not limited to just these two keyframes. If we go over here and press this button here, we can add additional keyframes anywhere in the clip, and depending on where we added them, that's what that keyframe is going to represent. Now, I know that seems a little bit abstract, but let's just look at it with a practical example. So if we go ahead and add a keyframe, if we add a keyframe to the middle of the clip, you can now see that if we drag this keyframe over, what's going to happen is the beginning is going to get slowed down a lot, and then the end is going to play super fast. That's because we created a new keyframe to represent the middle, and then we moved the middle over to the end, which necessarily had to slow down the beginning and then speed up the end, right? If we do the opposite, and if we take this middle keyframe and we drag it way to the beginning, let's just put them right next to each other. What's going to happen is this beginning is going to play almost instantaneously, right? It's just a few frames. That first half plays like right away, and then it's going to slow down to finish the end. And if we put it back in the middle, we'll get more or less what we had before. So this is extremely powerful because we can do that, like I said, with any point during the clip. If we go over to where we want the clip to actually end, which is right here when the camera stops moving, we zoom in here, we add another keyframe. What we can do is we can actually push this ending keyframe out, and then we can go over here, and it doesn't matter how much we push this out, and we can drag this keyframe here, and what's now going to happen is that new point which we specified is now going to be the end. So now you can see if we play this back, it's going to be nice and smooth, and at no point does the camera stop moving, and we successfully cut out that ending bit. Now you'll see that because there's no bar, this just stops showing, but if we were going to drag this bar out and continue to show this clip, you would see that that ending part where my character is moving just a little bit is going to play, and that's going to depend on where this keyframe is, but we can pretty much have this anywhere we want, and this ending keyframe no longer matters. As a matter of fact, we could even just delete it, and then now it's going to do what it did before. This is going to be the new ending keyframe, and then anything afterwards is just not really going to do anything at all, and we can just go ahead and put that bar back to where it was. And this is really powerful, right? Because we can define the start and end of the clip however we want. For example, let's say for whatever reason I don't actually want my characters to move around this much during this clip. I just want maybe like my character to take a few steps. Well, what I can do is I can actually move over and say I want the clip to start right there. Okay, and then we continue a bit more. Say I only want him to take like 1 or 2 steps, and I want the clip to end right there where he starts holding the ender pearl. And I only want the clip to be this long. Well, we add the keyframe and nothing has actually changed. But if we get rid of this starting keyframe and make this the new starting keyframe, and we get rid of this ending keyframe and make this the new ending keyframe, and then we can just go ahead and delete these, but you don't have to if you don't want to. We now see that the beginning of the clip will be exactly where I specified, and as we play through, the character will only take a few steps, just as I specified, and this will obviously be a lot slower because there's a lot less happening. But I actually liked how it was before, so let's just go ahead and undo everything I did and keep it just like that, and we don't have any of that ugly camera movement where the camera stopped for no reason. Perfect. So now if we play this back, we get something like this. Okay, and so we're definitely getting closer, but the problem with this is that it still looks, well, honestly, it still looks extremely bad. But we're going to continue working on this, and we're going to make it look better and better with each tutorial. But we've already learned so much that's now going to equip us to do what we need to do.